Hi everybody, it's Sunday morning, January, 5th of 2020. I just want to come to you today. First I want to talk about my project I did yesterday, the Saturday the 4th, where I installed two lights, and I installed both lights to one switch, and that was a learning process for me because I never did anything like that before. Like I said before in a previous video, I did a lot of easy stuff. I would, when I replaced a switch, I would look at it to see where the black wire was and the white wire and the ground wire, and then I'd imitate it. I wouldn't retain it, my knowledge, and think, well, okay, I see how this is fixed up there to go to that light. What I found out yesterday, after blowing two fuses, is that you need, like I said before in the previous video, you need to hook up what would be the cold wire, the hot, white, to the hot line, the black, and the black to where the white would go. So you switch it around, you run it up, you bring your feed in, and now you hook your hot wire, your black wire, to your white wire, and then the rest of the wires get hooked up from the lights. So you have to hook up at least three black and three white wires. So that there is pretty easy, but I didn't realize that, because in the past I never would put forth the effort or try to learn. I'd always use the excuse of, well, I don't know how to do that. Or I'd say, well, or if I try something, I'd say, oh, and it don't work, God don't want me to do that. Right, right. Those are excellent excuses if you don't want to do anything. Those are perfect for people who just want to sit there with their thumb up their butt and complain about, well, this ain't working and that ain't working. I can't do anything. No, you can't, because you're not trying. The beginning, okay, back in springtime, this was before God finally brought me to a point where I wanted to become unstuck and get my head out of my butt. Back in the springtime, I installed a ceiling fan and I installed a light. And most of that time, the majority of that time, was spent whenever I ran into a problem of cursing at God, angry, pissed off, throwing things, throwing tantrums, acting like a complete little immature child, because that's how I wanted to act. Now, I got them all installed and they work, but it took me longer acting like a dumbass than if I would have just gave that nonsense up and took my time and learned and thought about it, instead of, well, now I'm angry at this. So if you're in a situation like that, where you're always making excuses because you don't want to learn, let me tell you something. Get out of that, okay? Start working at stuff. And when you run into a problem, look at it as an opportunity, because now you have an opportunity to learn something. Now, I put another switch and maybe a light or two lights in, I ain't going to have a problem. I'm going to understand what I need to do, how to do it, and I'm going to get it done. It took me longer yesterday because I didn't know, and I had to watch a video, and I watched it a few times and just made sure I got it in my head. I got two working lights. I hooked up the one switch. So that's the first thing. Now the second thing I want to talk about is to Christians. And I want to talk about Christians and the occult. Now I'm not an expert on the occult, but I've had my dealings with occultic things and demonic. So I just want to give you a little backstory. Back in, I don't know if it was 1990 or 1991, a friend of mine that I was partying with brought a Ouija board over to my house. Well, I've heard of them, okay? I went to church, I heard about it, but I knew very little about the whole occult and the demonic, that world. I knew it existed. I believed that it existed, but I had no clue. And when I saw this board, this stupid little cardboard crap board with this plastic planchette with words and letters and yes and no and all that nonsense, I thought, this is ridiculous. And my friend said to me, never do this when you're alone. Well, one night I was alone. We weren't partying. They had other plans. So I decided I'm going to get this thing out and I'm going to play this, because I thought it's a bunch of crap. So I set it down, got the planchette, and I started asking questions. I mean, nothing. What's going to happen, huh? Nothing's going to happen. Yeah, right. That's what I thought until it happened. I'm going around and all that, and all of a sudden, now my table was up against the wall. But even if it wouldn't have been up against the wall, I didn't have an explanation for this. I'm going around there when all of a sudden I'm in a tug of war with something, and it's this kind of thing, trying to get it across. Well, okay, this here wasn't, what do I do now? Well, what I did was, when I finally got it, I took it and the board and I threw it, and I went and put it in the closet, and I thought, well, that's it. Good. I'm glad that's over. Oh, man. When you invite these idiots into your house, and they're already there, people got to understand that with the spiritual. They are there. They're waiting for an opportunity. Well, I don't know how long it was, but I'll just say it was a few months down the road. I'm sleeping. It's maybe around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, when all of a sudden I'm wide awake. Okay? Now, this isn't sleep paralysis. If you've ever had sleep paralysis where you wake up and you have a hard time breathing and you're still out, but you're trying to wake up and you can't, no. I was fully awake. My eyes were open, and it was like I wasn't even sleeping. But I couldn't speak. I could think. I could move my eyes. I could not move my body. I was paralyzed. I just couldn't move. It felt, I don't know how it felt. I mean, maybe you could say it felt kind of electric, and I couldn't move. This went on for, I'm going to say, 15 or 16 years, where periodically I'd be woken up at night like that. During that time when I was in that, okay, now this happened when I was in an apartment in Myerstown, Pennsylvania, here in Lebanon County. During that time, there were a few incidents that happened, but the one that I keep thinking about that comes back is I was walking from my living room in the apartment down the hall into the kitchen, and I was a slob. Okay, I barely cleaned up. I cleaned up enough so I could get around. I had a jar, or maybe I think it was a soda bottle, a plastic liter bottle of soda. It was empty. It was laying on the floor, and every time I'd walk into the room, the kitchen, or I'd walk out of the kitchen, I'd lift my leg up and I'd do more exaggerated movement, like I'd go, ooh, 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 and all that. Just, I was joking around. I did that one time when I was walking out of the kitchen. I lifted my leg up, and as I went like that, I heard in this ear, as clear as a bell, pick it up. So I bent down and I picked it up. All right. Okay. Now, let's move ahead to 2006. 2006, I was getting to the point where I drank. I drank from 1990 until when I finally stopped. It was when I stopped getting drunk. I still like drinking beer, but I don't get drunk. But when I finally stopped being a drunk was 2011. Okay, but in 2006, it was getting to the point with the drinking and the whole attitude and everything that I just pretty much called out to God. Now, I didn't call out to God about the demonic stuff, okay? That was something where I was in my little brain here trying to figure out how I could turn around. I knew if I turned around, I probably wouldn't like what I saw if I could see it, but that's how I am. Even when I was a complete low self-esteem loser panty waste, I still had that I ain't gonna give attitude sometimes. And that was one of them. It was like, I gotta beat this. Well, it wasn't gonna happen. 2006, I hit a point where I cried out to God. And he helped me at that point. I stopped drinking. And that stopped too. It came to my room a few nights after that. It came in, I woke up, and I turned around with a smile on my face and went back to sleep. But when you invite these things in, they will hang around. And I had a few incidents after that. One incident was I had I think it was a Saturday, I had watched a show or a movie on Netflix. Later on that evening, I wanted to watch something. I used to like to watch stuff like Star Trek in the evening or Doctor Who, because those were, it kind of, you watch stuff and it makes you feel sleepy and all that, you know how it is. And I wanted to watch his stuff. Well, I went over to Netflix. I clicked on the show I wanted to watch. Just kept buffering. Wouldn't stop buffering. So I think I clicked on another show. All it did was buffer. So I'm like, okay. So the next show I clicked on was X-Files. I thought, I'm going to try X-Files. All it did was buffer. And then out of this corner of this eye, I saw a flash. And I knew what was going on. And I prayed about it. I said, okay. I said, yeah. I said, I'm trying to watch a show. And I said, I got this problem here. Okay? Boom. That ended. I was able to watch what I wanted. There was another time when this was before I had Ad Blocker Plus. And, on YouTube, you have a box, an ad up here in this side. And I was kind of doing research on the demonic, and I was researching haunted houses and stuff. And I went on a video, and I'm watching this video, and up here on the side, wouldn't you believe it, was a Ouija board. Well, now, will I find love? Will I be successful? And I was kind of bothered by that, but we rationalized, and I said, well, I'm not playing it. That don't matter. If you're not playing it and you have nothing to do with it, and somebody else in that house is playing it, guess who's going to get screwed with? Okay? If you're in a, say you have half a house and there's someone else in the other half, and that person's messing with it, you're going to be messed with. So I keep watching the video, and after a while, you know, a little wisdom comes in. I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. The rest of that day, I was waiting for something to happen. I knew something's going to happen. I didn't know what. When I went to bed that night, I found out what's going to happen. What happened? I go to bed, and at that time, I had a LED clock. It had a blue, really, you know how they are. They're so bright that if you have it pointed toward your face when you're sleeping, you're going to wake up with a tan. I had it on my little dresser, pointed against the wall, and above it, I'd say maybe 4 foot, there was a small shelf about that wide, okay? That deep. Now, the only shadow that was around my ceiling was from that shelf, and that was just tiny, about that much. Not this night. This night, I probably had a total of a foot or more of black undulating shadow around the entire ceiling, from the wall out. I remember I laid down the bed and I looked up and I saw that, and I saw it undulating, and I'm laying there and I'm thinking, okay, all right, well, I was waiting for this. So I prayed again, and I said to God, I said, I know I should have got out of there. I know that it is my fault, but I wasn't playing it. And I want these things gone. And they were gone. Okay? So I have a bit of an understanding of the occult and the demonic and how a Christian should stay away from it. And we have all kinds of things out there now that Christians are getting into. The New Age movement. Okay? Okay? Christian yoga? Okay, Christian yoga. Yoga means to yoke. And you are yoked to the gods of the Hindus. Okay? Them Hindu gods, Krishna, Kali, Brahma, etc. These are devils. And you get in these, I mean, just think of the statues of these things. Is this the face of a godly being? No. That's somebody who wants to try to scare the crap out of you and tear your head off. I mean, look at Kali with all the skulls. These are devils. And frames being dropped. I don't know what that means. I hope that everything's all right. But as Christians, you need to study the Word. If you hear something like, hey, you want to join a Christian yoga class? Say, no, I want to find out about that if you don't know. If you already know about it, then stay away from it. But find out. You're supposed to look around you circumspectly, Christian. Do not, I mean, Christian bookstore nowadays. No, most of that crap is New Age, prosperity, all kinds of nonsense, and the real Word of God is hidden somewhere. You got to find it, which actually is good. The Bible says you're supposed to seek, you're supposed to look for, you're supposed to find it, you're supposed to search. So that's the only thing the Christian bookstore has got right. The rest of it is just dribble. So I'm just saying this to Christians. Do not, just because it has a Christian stamp on it, believe that everything's Christian. If they told you, hey, you want to come to this Christian bar and get Christian drunk with me? You'd say no. Hey, I have a new Christian drug here. You want to try it? No. But then they say, hey, I got a Christian yoga class over here. Okay? No, not even this guy here. This guy here, Spike. Spike wouldn't even go along with that. So I'm warning you, and just to let you know, do not, always research it. Always find out. Ask the Lord, help me to figure out if this is true or if this is not, if it's evil or if it's good, if it's your will, if this is something you're all right with. So, so do that, and hey, you won't have any problems. Go into it without doing that, you're going to have problems. So, until we meet again, I hope you always make the right choices. If you're as a Christian, pray about it first. And until we meet next time, this is Kramer Unstuck.